Hello everyone! In this series of videos, I will show you how to create an idle game using Godot. This is a video for beginners, and we'll start by creating the basis of an idle game, which are a text displaying the money we have and a button to upgrade the money. Because an idle game is mostly using the UI, we start by creating a user interface node. And in here, we're going to add a child node. And in that case, we want to create a button, so I'm going to look under control. Then I will search for button. And it's located under base button, and I just want a simple button here. On the right side in the inspector, I can change the text of the button. So in that case, I'm just going to write a simple text. And here, I'm just going to save this scene. I'm going to call that game UI, actually main game UI, and I can save it. Now I'm just going to move the button kind of in the middle of the scene. And now I will create a text. So in that case, I'm going to add a new node. Once again, look under control. And this time I'm going to search for label, which is what is going to display the text. And just like the button, on the right side in the inspector, I can write a text. In that case, I'm just going to type money, and then I'm going to add a temporary value of $0. So at the moment, we just have two UI elements, but nothing is happening in terms of logic. And to create the logic for the button to interact with the text, I'm going to create a new node. And in that case, I'm going to choose a node without any value in it. So right now we have a button, a label, and an empty node. On the right side in the inspector, on this new node we just created, I'm going to add a new script by clicking on empty next to script, then choose new script. I'm going to name that game manager, and I'm going to create it. In here, I'm going to create a first variable, which will be the money we have. So money, and var before the word money, then colon float equals to 0. We want to have a float because the value can have decimal points. Now I'm going to click on the button, and instead of looking into the inspector, this time I'm going to click on node. And under base button, I can see we have a function called pressed. I'm going to double click on that, select the empty node we have, and then click on connect. This will add a function into the script we just started to work on. And to start testing if this is working properly, I'm going to simply write a print statement, so print, and in the parentheses, I'm going to add the text hello. Now I'm going to run the scene to test it out. So I'm going to run the project. I'm just going to choose the current scene as the default scene. And now this should open a window with the game. And when I press on the button, when I click on it, I can see in the debugger that the word hello is being printed out. So right now the button and the clicking function of the button are working. Now what I'm going to do as a different test, instead of printing hello, I'm just going to print the variable money we just created. And when I do that, we can see that 0 is showing up, which is the exact value of money. Now that means we can start working on adding the logic to the button to increase the amount of money we have. To do that, I'm going to type money because I want to change the variable money, and I'm simply going to add a plus equal 1, which will simply add 1 to this value. Now I'm going to leave the print statement into the button so we can see it change. Every time we click on the button, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we can see that the value for money is being changed, and we can see what it is every time we press the button. Now, while this is very practical, it still is not very helpful when we look at the UI and we see that the money text is pretty much the same text. What we want to do is to change this text to reflect the actual value of the variable money. So I'm going to go into my tree and just change the name of the label to say money text. So this way things are a bit more clear. So I'm going to create a new variable, which I'm going to name money text. So I'm gonna write var money text is equal to, and in that case I want to refer to this label we have so it can update the text of the label. And it's very simple to do that in Godot. You can simply drag and drop your label into the script. This will automatically give the path of this node we created into the script. So we can see the $, then quote unquote 2 ./money text, which is a direct reference to where the variable is compared to the current script we are working on. Doing that, we don't have to look for the exact path of this label we created, and we can simply just trust the engine to do that for us. However, the moment you do that, you can see we have an error showing up, which simply tells us that we need to add the @ already before, which means that in the script, we're telling the engine that this variable, this reference to this variable, is defined before the game starts. This avoids any sort of issues that can arise. In our case, this label will always be the same label, it's not going to change, so we just simply make sure of that by adding already. This way it is ready and prepared for the game to be running. And by doing that, we can see that the error is being removed. Now we have a direct reference to this label, but we still need to change the text inside of it. To do that, in the onButtonPress function we worked on, I'm going to add money text, and I'm going to say moneyText.text. This way we can access the actual text value. In that case, I'm going to say the money text is equal to the variable money we have. However, if I just simply do that, we can see we have an error, mainly because money is a float. So it is a number, and our text variable needs to be a text or a string. In that case, we can simply convert the money variable to not be a float anymore, but to be a string. So I just have to write str parenthesis money, end of the parenthesis. This simply shows that the money variable is converted from a float to a string. We want to make sure this happens at the very last moment of the script, because if we do that before, we cannot change the text back to a float. So we first have our variable money, which is a float, the value is 0. We press on the button, the first thing that's going to happen is the money is increased by 1, it is still a float. Then we want to update the label text, and we want to show how much money we have, but we need to convert that into a string. Now if I load my scene again, every time I click on the button, we can see the money text is being changed to the actual money value we have. But doing that, while it's working, we can see that our text is just the number now, while before we had something saying money, colon, and then the amount of money. So our money text only displays the actual variable money, but we want to make sure that we have a text plus this variable. We want to keep what we had before, which is the text money, semicolon, colon, then the $, and then the actual amount of money we have. So to do that, I need to have a mix of a text and my variable. I can try to copy and paste the label and the text of the label directly into this variable. So in that case, that would be the money, colon, then $, and the amount of money. But I still need to add a variable to that to display the actual amount of money we have. You have two ways of doing that. Either we can have the text and add our variable after it, so that would be text plus the variable, or we can use a string interpolation. I prefer using string interpolation because it is easier to read, makes more sense, and is slightly more practical. It feels a bit more technical to do that if you're a beginner, but this is very useful in the long term. What I need to do is create a different variable. So I'm going to write var, I'm going to name this variable text, and I'm going to say that this text is equal to the actual text we want in the label. So in that case, this is the money, colon, $, and then the placeholder. And what I want next is to make sure that the money text, the actual label, I want this text to reflect its initial label and the actual current money. So in that case, I can just say money text.text is equal to the variable we just created, which is also named text. And I'm going to write the %sign to tell the engine, hey, here, instead of %s, instead of this placeholder, this is the variable I want you to show. So in that case, this is going to get our sentence, we have the money, and instead of the placeholder, we will actually see the amount of money we have. So now, if I go into the game and I click on the button, we can see the text is being displayed, and every time I click, the placeholder is being updated with the actual variable, which is the amount of money we have. So now if we try the scene again, every time I click on the button, we can see that we keep this text and the variable money is being updated every time. And now everything is working fine for what we want to do, which so far for this video was simply having a label and updating the text every time we click on the button. In the next video, we'll see how to automate this to have idle functions that increase the amount of money we have without clicking on anything. So this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.